Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lexby webinar series, your destination for sharp, timely, and practical guidance on eDiscovery, generative AI, and digital forensics. I'm Jeff Fugit, Chief Revenue Officer here at Lexby, and I'll be your host for today's session. Today our guest speaker is sharing insights into GenAI and what he wished he had known from the get-go. GenAI in legal tech and eDiscovery is progressing rapidly with new use cases being developed almost daily. We've seen strong adoption of GenAI by corporate legal departments to help achieve litigation readiness and address time-consuming tasks like responding to third-party subpoenas. The combination of our Lexby Autopilot GenAI automated document review solution and our auto redaction capabilities make responding to third-party subpoenas a breeze, and it takes a fraction of the time that it used to take with legacy document management and eDiscovery solutions. While firms are starting to catch up, they're still a little bit behind. We've seen rapid adoption of our Lexby Copilot GenAI assistant that's integrated into our eDiscovery platform. It's included in the price of the eDiscovery platform subscription, which makes it convenient and cost-effective. You'll see some specific use cases of Lexby Copilot after Karsten's presentation. For those of you that are investigating how to use GenAI in eDiscovery, today's session will help you avoid some mistakes and give you some practical insights in how you can make GenAI work for your practice. So let's dive in. Just a few quick housekeeping items before we get rolling. Our webinars take place monthly and cover leading edge issues in eDiscovery, digital forensics, and artificial intelligence. If you experience any technical issues, don't stress. Just shoot a note to webinars@lexby.com and we'll jump in to help. We'll be sharing a recording, slide deck, and podcast version of today's session shortly. Keep an eye on lexby.com and on our YouTube channel. And yes, we want your questions. Pop them into the Q&A panel, and we'll hit as many as time allows after the presentation. Also, please answer the survey questions at the end of the presentation today. It helps us continuously improve this program and bring you topics that are most relevant to your needs. And now just a little bit about Lexby. Lexby has spent over 19 years helping legal teams win document-intensive litigation. We do that with the most advanced GenAI deployment in eDiscovery. So we have Lexby Pilot, which gives you real-time case analysis and the next generation of early case assessment. If you don't know what you have in that large set of documents, Pilot will quickly bring you up to speed. Lexby Autopilot is our automated responsiveness and privilege review GenAI capability. And then Lexby Copilot is your GenAI-powered assistant for case strategy. It's built into every plan at no extra cost. Lexby has lightning-fast processing. We have over 10,000 CPUs that power our platform and process over 1 million documents an hour. We had one client recently upload 1.64 terabytes of PSTs, and they were reviewing those the same day. We have an intuitive, ROI-friendly user interface, and the platform is highly responsive. Time is money, and Lexby helps you move faster, get in your case documents sooner, bill more, and win more. We have a full-service forensic lab staffed with Cellebrite and Magnet Axiom certified forensic investigators. We do remote and on-site forensic collections. This includes smartphones, cloud accounts, social media, collaboration platforms, IoT devices, and much, much more. If you'd like a demo or a complimentary forensic consultation, simply email us at sales@lexby.com, and we'd love to show you how Lexby can support your next case. Now let's get to the main event. We're joined by Karsten Weber. Karsten is the CTO and co-founder of Lexby. He's been leading the software development team at Lexby for just over 19 years. He's an expert witness in eDiscovery and has over 3 decades of management and technology experience. After Karsten's presentation, we'll have Erica Biller from the Lexby product management team join us to demonstrate some of the best use cases of GenAI and eDiscovery, and I'll wrap up today's session. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Karsten Weber. Karsten?
Thank you, Jeff, and welcome to this week's Lexby webinar on the top 10 AI insights I wish I'd known when we first started out. So we've been doing AI, Gen AI at Lexby for going on 2 years. And wow, a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have improved. And then at the same time, there are several things that haven't changed, and I wish that I'd known from day one. Would have saved me a lot of time. And this webinar is really for people that are either just starting out with Gen AI, or there might be a couple of nuggets in there that will help you on your path to becoming better at using AI within eDiscovery. So let's just jump right in and tackle one of the biggest one. The first one here is data retention. I recently showed the AI that we have within the platform to our neighbor. He's an attorney. He was very excited to see all the things that it could do. And at the end, he said, "This is really great. There's just one problem. We can't use AI in our firm because it will share our clients' data." So data retention is a big issue, and it's true that these models are very data hungry. They use all the data they can get their hands on to train and get better. And for that reason, any kind of free version of GenAI are very likely to use your data, your prompts, and your response for training future models. And so it's very important, since we're dealing with confidential and sensitive information, that we have that we have a subscription that does not share that data. And thankfully, those do exist. And what you want to look for is the zero data retention policy. If it doesn't say that, or if it's the free version, chances are that if you put in any kind of client data, it'll go in, it'll be used in training of future models, and it will be discoverable by others that way. So make sure you look for zero data retention. Let's go to the next one. Second one is hallucinations. We're just tackling all the big ones here. I can't use AI because the output can't be trusted. And we've seen people early on use it like as if it was a search engine, and then just take the result and paste that in as the final answer. You can't do that. Hallucinations are possible. Anything that you use, you have to double check it. You have to check the references it comes up with. You have to double check that everything is correct. And one thing that I wish I'd known from day one is just when it does hallucinate, it does not sound any less confident. It is absolutely super confident. And I actually recently had something where it was giving hallucinations are rare. Let's start with that. And they're becoming more and more rare, but they do happen. And I had one situation where it was a program, it was outputting some code that was wrong. And then when you challenge it on this output does not appear to be correct. I mean, based on its training, it thinks it's correct, and therefore it will double down and say, no, it must be something in your testing that is the issue, because this is how it is. So expect for hallucinations, expect it to be equally confident whether it's hallucinating or not. So you can't sort of read into the tone of the output and determine it that way. I think one thing that's really useful in terms of understanding hallucination is just take one slide here and talk about how AI works. And an understanding of how it works behind the scenes really helps to understand why it can hallucinate. Basically, what it does, it has been trained on every single piece of data that can get the hand on, every book ever written, every web page ever posted. I mean, everything has gone into the training set, and then it looks at statistics for, given a certain sentence, what's the most likely next word. So here in this example, we have the best thing about AI is its ability to, and then it says with 4.5% probability learn will be the next word. 3.5% it'll be predict. That's just based on all the knowledge in the whole world that it's gotten its hands on. And so it predicts that next word, then it puts that into the model, and then it gets the next word, and then it puts that whole segment into the model and gets the next word. so on and so forth. And that's also why you see the output of the Gen AI being written out as if somebody's typing it out. It really is predicting it word by word. It's very interesting. I think humans do the same thing. If you ask, when you start saying a sentence, you probably don't know what word it's going to end on. You have a general sense of what you're going to say, hopefully, but we don't know what word we're going to end the sentence on. And same with Gen AI. If you ask it, how many words are you going to use in your response? They often have trouble answering that because they're just predicting words one by one. It's fundamentally different from the old traditional way of writing software, where everything was very predictable and you needed experts to write these systems. Now, with this way of doing it, we're actually able to create systems that exceed the smartest humans on the planet in certain aspects. And that's what's so fascinating. But you can also see how you can go down a wrong path and you can get to a hallucination because you're just putting out a string of words into a sentence based on the most likely, the highest probability. So now that we know that, you can see that the Gen AI model doesn't understand law, right? It predicts text. It doesn't know the law. They generate it based on pattern. So it's great for a lot of things, but it can't interpret the case law and provide legal advice. It really is just a next word predictor. It's amazing what it's able to do, but fundamentally it's a next word predictor. And I think that really helps to explain some of its limitation in terms of it can't practice law and it can't, we can't quite get the hallucinations to zero. That said, here's an example that I think is very thought-provoking. It's a summary of a source article, and in this particular study, they found that humans also, hallucinate, as you can see. So the human would put in they, and when the source material said the police arrived on the scene. So we lost some specificity in the human one. That was not a problem in the ChatGPT 4 summary. And then also in green, the human would say, this is the second individual in 3 months, when the source material really said that this is second of its sort in the last several months. So it's an example of there's a lot of finger pointing. There's a lot of calling out that Gen AI hallucinates and it's a problem. It's true. But in this particular study, proves that, humans do the same. We do make mistakes. And in this particular study, the Gen AI summaries were preferred, not the specific example, but in the whole study. The Gen AI generated summaries were preferred to the human ones. Thought that was very interesting. I've seen other studies where it was specific to legal and they preferred the human summaries to the AI ones, but it's interesting to see it's not clear cut. All right. Third one, let's talk about the price. The AI models, they charge by the tokens, and a token that's the internal thing used. It's effectively equivalent to a word. It's roughly 1.3 tokens per word. And then if I take an example of summarizing a document with 10 pages and 200 words per page, the cost there is going to be half a penny. It's going to be next to nothing. So you could run tons and tons of summaries. It wouldn't hurt the pocketbook too bad. But remember when we talked under item 1 about zero retention and the premium plans, you'll often see those ranging from $20 to $200 per month. So, and that tends to be So that tends to be the cost. Not so much the per question per Q&A, but more the monthly subscription to make sure you have a plan that doesn't share any of the client data with the AI. I'll also say cost just keeps coming down. I mean, the cost we see today for some models is literally 10% of what it was a year ago. So some of them have already dropped by factor 10. So it's really, really fascinating to see how fast they're improving in quality, but also how the price is coming down on some of the models. All right. Next one, number 4, is the context window. That one is that's a good one. Super important, especially a year or so ago. Becoming less and less important as the context windows get larger. So what is a context window? The context window is like the buffer of how much text the GenAI model can hold. And basically, a year ago, I mean, it could not hold a 75-page deposition. It could hold maybe 30 pages. Since then, and it couldn't do a great job of doing a summary of a deposition. It did an okay job, but not a great job. Maybe it could hold 30 pages or so, but that was about it. Now, a year later, it can absolutely hold an entire deposition, and it could do a great job of summarizing it by topic groups, and then referring back to which page and which line this was said on and by whom, and all of that is built into the platform, the Lexby platform today. But it's really come a long way. Let's look at that graph over there. So basically, what happens is you're having a conversation, and every time you ask a new prompt, the old documents you put in, the old prompts, everything just gets scrolled up, and eventually the context window has a certain size. It's in green, and eventually that oldest stuff will drop off. It will no longer be in the buffer in the context anymore. So you can imagine if you were talking about a sports team and saying, asking different things, then the latest prompt might say, when is their next match? And then the AI would respond, when is the next match? But if you asked a lot of other questions and put in other documents, and then you asked again, when is their next match? I mean, there's a chance that information about the sports team has now scrolled out of context, is now in the red. It's no longer part of the context, and therefore it would say, I don't have any information about who they are. I don't know who you are referring to. So used to be a huge problem. Context windows were 4,000 tokens, 10,000 tokens. Now we have context windows in the 1 million. We have one from Google that's 10 million. I mean, they really have gotten very large. That said, there are two things to keep in mind as the context windows go up. First of all, I mean, the cost goes up too if you're putting in humongous amounts of documents. But it's also that then there is a technical issue that is being worked on, which tend to de-emphasize the middle. So let's suppose you put in 100 documents and then you ask for a summary of each. It would tend to give a good summary of the first documents, the first 20 and the last 20, or maybe the first 40 and the last 40, but the documents in the middle would just receive less attention. They wouldn't be as strong. So there is some issue where the middle of a very long content window can get de-emphasized. And again, I mean, there's a lot of research around this. This might not be an issue a year from now, but just something to be aware if you put in a truly huge amount of data. And then another one is that the Gen AIs, the models are really, really good at summarizing things, but they're not good at certain items, such as if you put in 100 documents into a prompt and then say, give me all the emails that are listed in these documents, chances are it will fail. I mean, it's very good summarizing. It's just not very good at like extracting large lists. So be careful with that one. You might have 100 emails in those documents, and you ask for a list of all of them, and it might give you 60 or 70 of them. They don't give you the wrong one. They just drop a lot of uh, information if you're asking for long lists of output. Not its strength. All right. Number 5 I wished I'd known was that not all models are created equal. Both from different vendors, but also from different versions within the same vendor. In the old days, meaning a year ago, there was a knowledge cutoff. So it took about 2.5 years to get all the data from the internet and then put it into the model, train it, verify it. So by the time a new model hit the market, its knowledge was not up to date. It was 2.5 years behind. So if you asked for, who won the Super Bowl, it last year, it wouldn't know. It just wasn't in the training set. So that was a problem, clearly. And the way around that, and most models have that now. Not everyone, not all of them, but most of them, they'll have search enabled. And you can see that. You ask a question, and then you can see that it goes out on the web, and it pulls recent websites, recent pages in order to formulate the response. That helps with getting information such as who won the Super Bowl last time. So that's search-enabled models. Most of them are becoming that way. Not all of them are, and if they're not, you can't ask them anything recent. And then the other option that's becoming more and more common is the inference models, deep research. They got different names, but basically, instead of doing a one-shot where you put in a question and it outputs an answer, it breaks that question into steps, like 5, 10 intermediate steps. It'll take longer to answer. So instead of answering in a couple of seconds, it might take a couple of minutes to answer. But it's trying different. It iterates over those steps, and it's much, much better at coming up with the correct answer for anything that's kind of involves reasoning. So deep research, again, typically not available on the free models, but you want to stay away from those anyway, as we talked about. So those are really the models: the base model, the search-enabled model, and the deep research. And deep research is also great for setting up any kind of small research on some project, and it might spend 5, 10 minutes on it, but it does a great job. Different models, specifically between different vendors, have different restrictions, and you'll see that in the output. Some will say, can't do that, I'm not allowed to do that, and then other vendors will go ahead and do that. We've seen one where anything that that was near anything legal, I think that at one point they went a little bit too far in one direction, and as soon as it said the word legal, it's like, I can't answer this. And now it's pulled back a little bit more, and it does answer, but it says, I'm not an attorney, and so consult an attorney for legal advice. But at least it gives you a first order output. And then the last one, with not all models are created equal, is if you can't do something today, try again in a few months. And I think that's really true. I mean, we saw that with summary of depositions wasn't working very well, and then less than a year later, it's working phenomenally well. So it's just It's just that the models keep getting stronger and stronger, and they can do things today they couldn't do a year ago. All right, number 6 is the prompt, and the output is a reflection of your input, garbage in, garbage out. So think of it as these Gen AI. They've been trained on all of the human knowledge, making them incredibly powerful. And just when we ask questions, we often have a lot of assumptions we don't even include in the question. Like if we want to say, what's the best law firm? I mean, it would say, where, in what area, what language, what practice area, the geography. I mean, that's what constitutes best. It's so vague. So be specific. Here's a great example. I love this one, which is the prompt simply says, what is 1 plus 1? And first time I saw that, I'm like, it's obvious. It's 2. I mean, how can it not be 2? And again, the AI is trained on all human knowledge. So what if we do a prompt B that says 1 times 1 is a multiplication, 1 divided by 1 is a division, and 1 minus 1 is a subtraction. Now, what is 1 plus 1? And I mean, it's clear the answer is that it's an addition. So it's just again, the first one was not specific. The answer could be to 1 plus 1 could be that it's algebra, right? It could be 1 plus 1 is 10 if you're talking binary. It could be 1 plus 1 is 1 if you're talking about strings that you're putting together. I'm sure it's really fascinating one, because I'm sure you can come up with a couple of more. This could be kindergarten or first grade math, right? I mean, there's so many things that could be the answer to what is 1 plus 1. Just depends on the context. And so it's really important to be specific. Along the same lines, number 7 is that these prompts can be long and they can be complex. I've seen, for example, you can talk about summarize this versus summarize this deposition like a legal brief. We'll see that in a second on the next slide. But before I go there, I've seen some law firms that have summary prompts that are 2,000 words long. So it would be along the lines of, if the document appears to be of this type, then summarize it this way. Otherwise, if it's of this type, summarize it that way, and then include this and be specific on this point, and on and on and on. You can really get to a very, very long prompt. When you generate these prompts, the first point here, to talk to the AI like a human, that's probably the strongest point that I have in terms of things I've learned. The more I think of it like a human or talk to it like a human, the better the response tends to be. And so you want to give it instructions like you give an instruction to a colleague, and then you can even improve the prompt with the AI, where you do a report, you do a summary, you do a memo, and then it generates an output. Then you take that prompt and the output and say, improve this prompt, and you'll see a much, much better second iteration of that prompt, and a much better output as a result. It's fascinating. It says, ask the question at the end. It goes a little bit back to that issue that if the context window gets too long, the question can sort of get lost if it's in the middle or at the beginning. So put in all the text and then put in the question at the end. Okay, so let's take an example of that. Summarize this versus summarize this deposition like a legal brief. And here it is. Basically, if you see part of a raw deposition excerpt there at the top, and then in green is the summarize this. And if you're talking like that, you just get a very generic, the witness testified that she was driving east on Elm Street, saw the light turn yellow, and proceeded through the intersection despite recognizing it was about to change. That is an accurate summary, and that's what you ask for. But now if you say summarize this deposition like a legal brief, you see the output is 100% different. I mean, it's a completely different output from the same input. It's just the model knows that you're looking for a legal brief. It knows what legal briefs look like, and it switches the outputs. Yeah, the slide speaks for itself. Now, if you took this, summarize this deposition like a legal brief plus the output there, pasted that back in and said, give me a better prompt, you will get an even better prompt, and you run it again, and you'll get an even better out. Item 8, learn from others. So this one, I think, is really important because different people use AI very differently. You're really only limited by your imagination. So they say that the elder generation, we tend to use GenAI as a search engine replacement. They say the younger generation, they use it more like an operating system, like a foundation for what they're working on. Older people, we tend to just go in and effectively search for things. The younger one, some survey says that they will not make a major life decision without running it by AI first. So think of that what you will, but it's just a completely different way of using it. A friend of mine works at a local university, and he was giving a presentation, and he used AI, to help with the draft, and then and some polishing and some wording. And then at the end, he said, for this presentation, when I give this presentation, what are some questions that I might be asked and from the audience? That was a way of using it that I hadn't thought of. Sure, I thought of using it to help generate the presentation, but not so much the asking questions. And so it gave 10 questions that the audience might ask him. Then he answered those 10 questions and fed it back into the model and saying, here are my answers. What do you think? And on 2 of them, it actually had some real deep insight, saying, there is a section over in your presentation here that better answers that question than the way you answered it, and you might try and draw a parallel to this other aspect of the presentation. So he was surprised at the level of detail, but also it's such a neat way to use it that just think again, learn from others. Some people turn on the history of the AI so it remembers conversations, and then they say, I have this goal in my career. Alert me every time I ask something that's not aligned with this goal in my career. That's again, that's for the younger crowd typically, but they just use it so differently from just the search engine. It's very fascinating to see. So because it's only limited by the imagination, I think it's really helpful to talk to others and see how they're using it. All right. Inside and outside of eDiscovery platform. A lot of what we talked about so far could be done inside platform or outside. But at some point, you can take a document, you can copy the text out, you can put it into an external GenAI as long as you have zero retention set up, and then you can generate the summary there. But at some point, if you're just going from document to document, you just can't keep copying and pasting. That's going to get very tedious. You can also compare multiple documents with each other. It gets more and more tedious to copy all of those out. Then inside the platform. I mean, all the issues of zero retention have been resolved. But you can also see things like auto classification, which is issue coding, responsiveness coding, key documents that can be run against the entire case. And now there's no way you're going to sit and copy 100,000 plus documents out into an external uh, AI. You have to have it built into the eDiscovery platform. And then finally, Q&A and report generation, finding of facts, full reports on your case. Again, I mean, they cannot, it has to happen inside the platform. And so I'm happy to say that all of the above are available today in the Lexby platform. So check that out. Also, I should mention within the platform, the co-pilot, the summarization, the Q&A of individual document, that's all bundled with the base plan. So we believe that GenAI is going to help really revolutionize or disrupt legal, and we want to make sure that everybody has access to it. All right. Last item, 10, drafting and training. Just want to say that the GenAI is really good at creating first drafts, contracts, client letters, emails, internal documents. That is that's a huge time saver, and we use that all the time for getting an initial start, and then you have the human do the actual document. And also, another way we use it is for generating training data. We like to have different examples of stuff, and we want to make sure that we have training examples internally that's not client specific, so that it's not, so it can be safely shared. And for that, we also want it to be meaningful. And we found that some of the documents that are available on the internet are just not specific enough for the training that we want to show. And so we just use the GenAI to generate hundreds of different documents, thousands of documents that we can then turn around and use in training. And you can really use that to have it be tailored to your firm's focus and needs. All right. So what is a top 10 list without a bonus item here? And the bonus one is that it's great to use the GenAI for lots of different things, including complex legal and technical concepts. So we found that we can take those complicated legal and technical concepts and then help to explain that to new employees and also teams that are not working in that area. So it's a great way to use it as a teacher to help down. And then the last one here is the other one is the multimodal, where it's not just taking text as input, but it can also take images or voice or movies. And for images, for example, I mean, you can actually use it for things like you take a PDF with highlights on a deposition, and then you feed that in and say, extract all the text that is highlighted and then summarize that. So it's a neat way of combining the multimodal capability of the models with the legal needs. So final thoughts. We are living through one of the most transformative moments in human history. And to witness it is a privilege. We truly stand at the frontier of something historic. I mean, it's amazing to witness. It really is a privilege. And I'm often asked if AI will replace lawyers. And my standard response to that is no. Only the ones who aren't using AI. I think there will be a tremendous need for attorneys, paralegals that know how to use GenAI, can use it to really accelerate the cases, accelerate the review, and also become very strategic as AI grows up. It just becomes smarter and smarter, can look at bigger and bigger amounts of data. And it will become a strategic assistant and really help with increasing the probability of winning the case and in the right arguments. Absolutely. Um, Lawyers and paralegals are here to stay. We'll need a lot more of them with all the IP law around GenAI. And nobody's going to get replaced as long as they know how to use AI. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the Lexby webinar on the top 10 AI insight. I wished I'd known from the beginning. This would have saved me so much time if I'd known that. And it was a pleasure to share it with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Karsten. And now I'll turn it over to Erica Biller to walk you through a few GenAI use cases.
So, what are some use cases that AI can be used in for eDiscovery? The first one that we're going to touch on is determining relevancy or responsiveness. Now, we're approaching this from the perspective of utilizing generative AI to help conduct a first level review. So, essentially, we've put together a prompt here, and we have a topic, and then we're asking the AI to respond yes or no. So either the document is responsive to this topic or not responsive. And then we're asking it to give a confidence rating of its assessment based on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most confident and 1 being the least confident. And we've also asked for a brief summary as to why it has made the assessment it has. And we've also specified a format for the output of its response. As you can see, the AI determined that this document was responsive to this particular topic. It had a confidence level of 9, and then it also provided us with the brief summary that we requested, and it gave us the overall response in the format that we requested as well. So when we look at this from the perspective of a first level review, imagine running this prompt across all of the documents in your data set and then taking the documents that have a confidence level of, say, 8, 9, or 10, promoting those to the next level of review, and then maybe taking documents with a confidence level of 7 or lower, and either maybe doing some extra searches on them, or generally just putting another set of eyes on those documents before you make the determination as to whether or not you want to go ahead and promote them to the next level of review. Obviously, implementation of AI in this manner is going to substantially reduce your costs and put you significantly ahead of schedule, because we're looking at a first level review being completed in really 24 hours. The next use case that we are going to touch on is personally identifiable information, also known as PII. We have certainly all struggled at some point with having to identify it and get it redacted out of our data sets in preparation for either being used as exhibits or being produced to other parties. So sometimes we're fortunate enough that we know exactly what we're looking for with PII. We know all of the types of documents that we have and what's going to need to be redacted from them and where to find it. However, we're not always so fortunate. So you can really craft a prompt if you don't have a good grasp on what type of PII you're necessarily looking for or dealing with in your data set. You can put together a prompt and ask it, hey, what types of PII are in this group of documents? And it'll provide you with a list. Again, you can be specific if you want. You can see here in the example on the slide that we have specifically asked for email addresses, social security numbers, and phone numbers, which is precisely what it gave us. And that was off a basic patient intake form. But again, if you don't know what you're looking for, you can ask for it to provide it to you, what it believes is PII. And then you can actually go a step further and ask for it to provide it to you in a specific format. So, as we all know, phone numbers are never written in a consistent format. Area codes have parentheses around them. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes email addresses, if they've gone through processing, they'll have parentheses around them and then a name. Sometimes you've got a semicolon after it. You can write into your prompt that all of these things be normalized and then deduplicated, so you end up with a single list of the unique PII that you need to be looking for across your data set.
Another great use case for using AI is to analyze financial records, so bank statements. We recently had a user who was spending an inordinate amount of time going through bank statements for multiple accounts, trying to identify, looking specifically for transfers between one account to another. And then every time they identify one, they went ahead and added it manually to an Excel spreadsheet, and it was tedious, and the workflow is just untenable when you have that much data to pour through. So in this instance, we recommended using AI to help with that process. So you'll see here we have 4 different synthetic bank statements. What we're going to do is we're going to select them here. And before we run this prompt, we're going to go ahead and review it real fast. So essentially, we're asking it, analyze the following bank statements and extract only the entries related to fund transfers. You want to look for keywords such as transfer, wire, ACH, deposit, withdrawal, send, receive, or any specific transaction descriptions that indicate the movement of funds between accounts. Present the extracted entries in table format using the bar character as a delimiter. The format should appear as follows. And you can see here, we want it to be date followed by the account number, the description, the amount, and then the link to the supporting document for that particular extracted data. So we are going to go ahead and run that. And while this processes, the benefit of putting this into a table format is it will come out delimited, so you can copy and paste it directly into Excel, and it will be formatted in columns that are easy to filter and sort on, and it will just make the data far more manageable and easy to work with. As you can see now, it is running through and identifying everything that we asked for. Yep. So these entries include both incoming and outgoing transfers, as well as electronic deposits and withdrawals. So if we copy what we received here, we open up an Excel and we paste, here you go. And we can see here, we have the different mentions, the different descriptions, we have multiple accounts, amounts are in here, and then these are links or URLs back to the supporting document in the Lexview platform. So overall, a fantastic tool as far as streamlining the review or analysis of any sort of financial data.
The next use case that we're going to look at is using generative AI for document translation. A lot of times we're fortunate to know on the front end during the collection phase whether or not we're going to have a large set of foreign language documents that we're going to have to contend with. With Lexview Copilot and Autopilot, we can process foreign language documents and translate them either en masse or, as we have on the slide here, on a document by document basis. A simple request or a prompt of please translate this document into English is what we used, and you can see the response that we got on the right-hand side. Again, if you know that you have a lot of foreign language documents that are going to be in your review, you can run the prompt against all of those at once, Or if you're reviewing what you think are primarily English documents, and then you happen to come across a rogue foreign language document, you can always run this on the fly just so you can go ahead, get through your review, and move on to the next document. The next use case seems to be a favorite among those that I've spoken with, and I certainly wish that it would have existed back when I was working in a law firm. That's going to be the ability to summarize hearing transcripts and deposition transcripts. Obviously, you can use AI for all sorts of summarization and document analysis, but we have certainly all been responsible at one point or another, I would imagine, with having to summarize deposition transcripts. Somebody has to do the dirty work, and so now we can have AI do it for us. So here we just, again, a very simple prompt. Please summarize this trial transcript that we have here. And that's exactly what it does. And it does it pretty quickly. And you also have the ability, if you have, say, multiple transcripts, using LexB Copilot, you can select multiple transcripts or documents that you want summarized, and it will run through and create summaries for each. It can also, if you select multiple ones, take essentially the text from all of those and build a summary of those 10 documents in aggregate. So something to consider. Absolutely one of the most useful aspects, I think, of AI in eDiscovery.
Another great use case for AI is for analyzing and summarizing medical records. At some point, most of us have been tasked with, taking a batch of medical records and running through and generating some sort of summary that's easy to read and digestible. So you'll see here that we have 5 synthetic medical records. So we are going to run a prompt across them, and that prompt is that these documents contain medical records detailing treatment administered to a patient on specific dates. We're tasking it to extract the key details and organize them in a list based on the date of treatment. And then we're asking that if a date of treatment isn't available, that it be placed at the end of the list. We want it to identify the medical provider's name, the purpose of the visit, any diagnosed conditions, and then we also want a succinct treatment summary within 75 words, along with any prescribed medications and any mentioned medications. Then we're also asking for it to provide links to the supporting documentation for each of those entries on the list, and we're letting the AI know that your analysis, or its analysis, is going to facilitate an efficient understanding of the patient's medical history. So we're giving it a little bit of context. So we are going to run this prompt now. And as you can see, it was just, this title is actually what's generated by the AI. You can go back in and update that title to whatever you would like for it to be once it's been generated. So as you can see here, it is generating the report with the treatment summaries following, what we specified. And it also has the document links to it. And that's pretty much it. And if you click here, you just click copy. That copies all of the text here. And it also maintains the formatting. So you could paste that into, say, a Word document if you wanted, and work with it further there. Or if you're compiling a whole bunch of info into something like that, you could also use that. But yes, so medical summaries just got a lot easier. No more having to pore over mountains of mind-numbing medical records one at a time and construct a summary. You can go ahead and just let AI do it for you.
The next use case we're going to look at for generative AI and eDiscovery is going to be IDing key dates and entities. And really, this kind of gets into some early case assessment work or tools. And with generative AI and how broad its functionality is, It's really a fully customizable analytics tool. Again, this particular example is for key dates and entities, but you can really make it anything that you need. So in this particular example, we actually selected 10 documents just randomly, and then we asked it to identify the key dates as well as the key entities in those documents, and then provide us with a summary of those 10 documents as well. So again, while this is just one example of what it can do, early case assessment analytics in general, with how customizable GenAI is, really there is no limit to the kind of information that you could probably use this to generate. So the final use case is my favorite. I've saved the best for last, and that is using generative AI to create chronologies. Certainly, if you've worked in the legal field, in a law firm, whether you're an attorney or a paralegal, we have all been tasked with creating a chronology, a timeline, whether you're sifting through a few documents, looking for a few key events, or you have had a data dump and it is now your fun task to get everything in order and figure out what's actually going on. Now, instead of having to labor intensively for days and days trying to get things in order and manually creating a timeline or a chronology, you can do it literally within a minute or two. You'll see in this particular example, we used only one document. However, what's unique about it is that this document didn't have, it wasn't a document that would be used to be timelined in a sense that you would normally think of. And it actually mentions here, so we inputted our prompt, create a chronology of the key events in this document. And so it lets us know what this document is, but it also mentions that the key events and data points in the document are not events in the traditional sense, but are statistical updates and activities related to the direct access program as of specific dates. So again, it's not, these aren't dates in the traditional sense. It goes through and it timelines what are essentially these statistical updates and activities. And then to add even further context to the timeline, at the end, it states that the document does not provide specific events in a narrative form, but rather gives a snapshot of the direct access program status at the end of August 2001 and the activities related to the program within that month. So, I mean, every time I've ever created a chronology in the past, you go through diligently, create your entries and whatnot, but literally within certainly less than a minute, it spit out a chronology, and it even gave us context as to why these dates are not what you would traditionally see in a document chronology. So again, this was on one document. However, you can select however many documents you would want in the case and say, hey, create a chronology of the key events in this document, and it will go ahead and generate one for you. And that particular use case is one of my all-time favorites, and I absolutely wish that it existed back when I was working in a law firm. So just absolutely one of the biggest time savers that generative AI can provide us for use in eDiscovery.
Thanks, Erica, for that overview of different GenAI use cases. At Lexby, we've developed a comprehensive GenAI suite of products to help you with your cases. We have Lexby Pilot, which delivers an incredible early case assessment. It can quickly tell you which documents in the dataset support the claims in the complaint. It can tell you who the key players are in the dataset. It can tell you the key events. And we've also developed this with a retrieval augmented generation framework, and that eliminates the typical GenAI token capacity issue. It equips our clients with the ability to gain a comprehensive understanding of the case and documents earlier in the process. And we license Lexby Pilot on a per case basis. Next, we have Lexby Copilot, which is included in every Lexby plan, so you don't have to pay extra for your GenAI license or model. It's that trusted expert sitting by your side and helping you through your document review. Erica covered many of the use cases of Copilot, from summarizing depositions, creating timelines, analyzing medical records or financial records, and much more. In fact, you can simply ask Copilot any question you have about the document you're reviewing, and it will quickly retrieve the answers. And last but not least, we have Lexby Autopilot. This is automated document review for responsiveness or privilege. This is great for third-party subpoenas or document-intensive cases. We can provide you with an estimate for your project. In our tests, it often outperforms human reviewers for precision and recall. It also gives you a confidence score and the rationale for the prediction, so you're not dealing with the black box of legacy TAR technology. If you'd like a demonstration of these technologies or an estimate of the cost, please indicate that in the survey at the end of today's session, and we'll get that set up for you. We work with a lot of litigators to help them solve their eDiscovery challenges. Jordan Howlett is a sophisticated litigator running a multi-office boutique firm. Most of his cases involve larger, well-funded opposition. With Lexby, he likes having ChatGPT available at his fingertips so he can quickly gain insights into the relevant case documents. David Jones was concerned he would be outgunned by his AmLaw opposition. He quickly realized that Lexby was a great equalizer and helped him build his best case that delivered a winning verdict. Paige Tackett at Thompson Co. needed Lexby speed to get productions out the door to meet deadlines. Lexby is lightning fast and gets you from document ingestion to productions faster. Patrick Biggins needed an easy-to-use eDiscovery platform to handle document-intensive cases. Lexby got him onboarded fast and provided the support they needed to build a strong case. Please let us know if you have any questions or comments about this webinar or suggestions for future topics. This webinar is part of the Lexby eDiscovery webinar series. For notices of future live and on-demand webinars as part of this series, please email us at webinars@lexby.com or follow us on LinkedIn. Also, we'd like your advice regarding our webinar series. Please complete the survey at the end of today's session. Helps us continuously improve this program and cover the digital forensic and eDiscovery topics that are most relevant to you. And with that, I'd like to thank you for attending. Be sure to follow Lexby on LinkedIn and check out our YouTube channel so you'll be alerted to the latest podcasts and webinar episodes. And watch your inbox for an invite to our next webinar on best practices in eDiscovery, generative AI, and digital forensics. Take care.